Alright guys, and welcome to a very different video. Today we're going to be looking at what a Death Knight may look like in vanilla World of Warcraft in Classic WoW. The reason we are doing this is because there are many hints to Death Knights being possibly playable in the future in Season of Discovery, especially as it's now been data mined that Blizzard are using a 3.4 client and they are now using that for Season of Discovery. Well, they have temporarily used it as a testing build, and there's some mob NPC taking... This is very likely to copy assets from the Wrath of the Lich King client, namely the Scarlet Enclave area that we see in the Death Knight starting area. As we know, that is very likely going to be an accessible area in the next phase. By the way guys, if you are looking to get your characters caught up for the next phase of Season of Discovery, by far the fastest leveling guide out there is from Reset XP. On the 20th of January, they are stopping the extra 15% discount, so make sure to take advantage of it when you can. Just use Metagoblin Fresh when you're at the checkout, use it as a coupon code, and be sure to click my link in the description. But anyway, let's get back to talking about Death Knights. Early on in the development of World of Warcraft, Blizzard didn't actually intend to release expansions. They intended to release things as content updates. This is why we see Karazhan in the vanilla client, and we see parts of the Burning Crusade expansion like Hellfire Peninsula and stuff like that. But obviously they eventually decided, let's do some expansions instead. And one idea they did have in vanilla was to have a hero class, was to actually release a version of the Death Knight. And this is why we can see certain Death Knight abilities in the game on the vanilla client. And obviously to see all these things we will need our own vanilla World of Warcraft server where we can mess about as a game master, and that's basically what I have done today. Now, a lot of the abilities you'll be surprised that they are actually in vanilla. Some of them, fair enough, they are NPC abilities from the Death Knights in Skullman, Stratholme and Naxxramas, but some of them aren't actually NPC abilities, and it's very obvious that they were actually going to be a class ability accessible by players, but they decided to scrap it. As you can see here, what Blizzard basically did is they typed the letters Z when they were kind of like deciding to get rid of an ability, so it obviously didn't appear in a database, it appeared all at the end. And what we have is we have Blood Boil and Death and Decay. Death and Decay is more of a casted ability, as you can see. I think it deals damage, or looks like it's not dealing damage, so obviously this is a very early version of a spell, but weirdly it does have, as you can see, the 30-second cooldown that it does actually have, you know, when we finally do unlock Death Knights. Then we have Blood Boil. Blood Boil is a targeted ability that deals damage. As you can see, it's not an AoE ability. Interestingly, Raise Dead was also in the game, but it looks a little bit different. Obviously the ghoul model I don't think was yet in vanilla. I think the ghoul model that we see for the Death Knight was added in Wrath of the Lich King, so obviously we see more of a skeleton model instead, which would look pretty cool. And Death Pact is actually in the game as well. If we use it, it sacrifices the NPC skeleton and returns health to us. And I believe it actually, if you go to, in fact I'm just going to show you. As you can see, if we use Death Pact near friendly NPCs, it actually affects them. So maybe the original Death Pact was actually intended to be used also on people in your party. I imagine that could have been very problematic. We also have a pretty cool Bone Armor ability, and yeah, if you look at it, it is fairly similar. It literally has the exact same animation as well, but in this case it absorbs damage for 1 minute and also prevents spell casting. There's also some interesting disease abilities in the game. I think the most interesting is actually Wandering Plague. But anyway, let's see what it does. Well, it only has a 10% chance to spread on hit, and to be honest, I don't think it's actually working properly. But yeah, this is interesting how Wandering Plague was also in the game. We also have Unholy Aura. When I press this though, the range is pretty ridiculous, and it pulls all NPCs near me. As you can see, actually no, it's not as far as I thought. But this was also another Death Knight ability, although it had I think it has a slightly different name, and I think it was added in Legion. A number of NPCs in Naxxramas also had this ability too. Corpse Explosion was also in the game, although I've not been able to get it to work on corpses. There's also Fevered Plague, which is basically a dot similar to Blood Plague, And then we also have Scare Strike. It is in the game, it's definitely not working anywhere near like it does in Wrath of the Lich King, because when you use it, it's a one-shot ability, so it's not properly scripted in the game. But yeah, it is literally in the game, and it is called Scare Strike. And then lastly, we have the very iconic ability Anti-Magic Shield, which actually makes you totally immune to magic. But it's so cool how this is actually in the game, and the animation and the look of the spell is exactly how it was when Death Knights were released in Wrath of the Lich King. If you proper bury into the database of a vanilla WoW client, you will also find many more Death Knight abilities. And what it seems is there's a lot more casted abilities than you would expect. And it gives me the idea that the original design intention for the Death Knight, when Blizzard were thinking about it during Vanilla's time, I think they wanted it to be a bit more of a necromancer than a Death Knight than what we saw in Wrath of the Lich King. So basically what you see from NPCs in Vanilla in the certain instances. And this makes sense really, because if you look at how Death Knights played in the original Warcraft 2, they were a unit that were basically on horseback, going around, casting a lot of abilities with death coils and various other disease thematic abilities. It would be awesome if we saw two different playstyles for the vanilla Death Knight, one that is more of a necromancer caster and one that is more of a melee unit, because I think many players, particularly Death Knight fans, have been looking for something like that for a while. We have speculated that Blizzard would eventually release a necromancer class. I think something like this could be very interesting. I know for me personally it would definitely bring me back to playing Season of Discovery. But anyway guys, my name is Metagoblin, and let me know what you think in the comment section. But until my next video, ciao.